Hello everyone and welcome to Eternalism in a Nutshell. My name is David and the title of this episode is The Religion of Wokeism and the Plan of Salvation, Part 2, Praxis. This is Episode 10. In Part 1, we covered the theoretical framework for our discussion on the religion of wokeism and the plan of salvation. In Part 2, then, we will turn to the praxis, meaning the practical application of this material to the religion of wokeism. In the last episode, we introduced the three levels of gospel understanding and emphasized the point that the philosophy of eternalism deals with our most inner core beliefs pertaining to God, man, and the universe. Later in this episode, I am going to use this same illustration to summarize the religion of wokeism with its three levels of woke understanding. In the previous episode, I also spoke of the plan of salvation, its relationship to following the covenant path, and how we are at risk of losing sight of the big questions when it comes to man's search for happiness, such as who am I, where did I come from, why am I here, and where am I going? I then invited everyone to view a video on the plan of salvation in a nostalgic remembrance of days gone by. Now, if you'll recall, I have repeatedly expressed my belief that queer Marxism poses the most significant threat to the church as an institution, and I have now addressed what I consider to be the 5 primary areas of concern among the Orthodox for preserving our traditions, beliefs, and moral standards as a Latter-day Saint community. However, those who are heterodox view these 5 areas of concern as opportunities to further their woke agenda. This includes advocating for full and equal access to our ward meeting houses, temples, and priesthood ordination for the entire LGBTQ+ community, as well as a complete revision of the Family Proclamation and the Plan of Salvation to accommodate the heterodox ideas and ideals of what they refer to as God's queer children. Keep an eye on, then, on all 5 of these major areas of concern for the Orthodox Latter-day Saint, because each is in danger of what I will call the queerification of all things sacred and secular. Let me explain what I mean. Let's take the verb queerify, which means to make queer, to cause not to conform to mainstream sexual identity or behavior. Then we have the related noun of queerification. Let me show you how this works by referring back to Blair Ostler's book, Queer Mormon Theology, wherein we have 2 or 3 instances of this queerification. First, there is the queerification of Mormon theology, which queerification is what her book is all about. And then there is the queerification of the official Utah State emblem of the beehive, which was representative of industry in general, but also of the industrious spirit of the early Mormon pioneers. She writes, "The cover of this book features a rainbow beehive. This symbol represents far more than a trendy queer take on Mormon history and culture. The rainbow beehive is an unofficial queer Mormon coat of arms." She continues in these words, "I see the passion and spirit of early Mormon pioneers shining through my fellow queer Mormons. I have participated in many queer Mormon groups, and I can tell you that we live and breathe the values of early Mormon pioneers." We have then not only the queerification of Mormon theology in the Utah State emblem of the beehive, but also the queerification of the early Mormon pioneers. In any case, she continues in these words, "We are the pioneers of today, building a community with perseverance and industry in a hostile environment. Even when we were asked to leave churches and temples, we pressed forward. Then, speaking of a future day, she writes, "We will march in the streets and sing in the pews. We will preach from pulpits with tears streaming down our cheeks. Why? For we have built a community worthy of a coat of arms." Which coat of arms is, of course, the queerified rainbow beehive. When I speak, then, of the queerification of all things, sacred and secular, I mean that literally, for there is nothing in this world or the next that is not subject to this queerification by these woke activists and queer Marxists. Now the world would love nothing more than to plant the pride flag on all things sacred and secular, including all 5 major areas of concern for Orthodox members of the Church. However, the world may not have to do so if the perseverance and industry of these heterodox and queer Mormon pioneers of today can create an entire LGBTQ+ community within the Church using a woke strategy of marching in the streets and singing in the pews, and all under the woke activist banner, or coat of arms, of a rainbow beehive. With that said, let's now turn to part 2, the praxis, meaning the practical application of this material to the religion of wokeism. In part 2, then, we will explore the religious aspects of cultural Marxism, with a particular focus on queer Marxism. It is an error to think of cultural Marxism as solely a group of woke activists promoting a political agenda. It goes much deeper than that, as this cultural revolution is both a religious and political movement. In fact, without the underlying religious aspects of cultural and queer Marxism, it is doubtful that this political movement would be as successful as it is, as it would lack the religious fervor and cult-like features often associated with true believers of false religions, ideologies, and ideals. We see then that this wokeism and woke activism has both political and religious aspirations of an authoritarian nature, and so it should not surprise anyone that this praxis, or doing the work, consists in this dual activist role wherein they proudly proclaim that we will march in the streets and sing in the pews. To best understand cultural Marxism and the religion of wokeism, one must realize that they view everything through a racial and queer lens of social justice. Critical race theory represents the former, and critical queer theory represents the latter. Together, they seek to racialize and queerify everything, both sacred and profane, all in the name of promoting social justice. Of the two, the queerification of all things is the more radical and dangerous, as it attacks the Christian and moral foundation at the heart and soul of Western civilization. Some people deny that wokeism is both a political and religious movement, but its religious nature is undeniable. Nonetheless, I wanted to see what ChatGPT had to say in support of those who argue that wokeism has many religious features. Here is the response I received. Those who argue that wokeism has religious features may point to the following. 1. Belief in a moral or ethical code. Wokeism is often associated with a set of values or principles that guide social justice activism, such as equality, inclusion, and diversity. These values may be seen as similar to religious moral codes. 2. Sacred objects or symbols. Wokeism may use important symbols and objects, such as the Black Lives Matter fist, the #MeToo hashtag, and imagery for raising awareness about sexual harassment, and the LGBTQ+ rainbow symbol and pride flag for promoting equality and inclusion. 3. Rituals or practices. Wokeism may involve various rituals or practices, such as protests, marches, or social media campaigns, that are seen as important for advancing social justice causes. 4. A sense of community or belonging. Wokeism may create a sense of community or belonging among its adherents, who may feel a strong connection to others who share their beliefs and values. 5. A sense of purpose or mission. Wokeism may provide its adherents with a sense of purpose or mission as they work to advance social justice causes and make the world a more equitable and inclusive place. It is worth noting, however, that not all scholars and commentators agree that wokeism should be seen as a form of religion. To me, these 5 religious features are enough evidence to consider wokeism as more than just a political movement. When an activist movement can offer its followers a set of values to live by, symbolic and sacred icons to rally around, a practical approach for advancing their cause, a sense of community for camaraderie, and a sense of purpose to give meaning to their lives, then it has all the elements of a resilient religious movement. Keeping that in mind, let's use our earlier illustration to break down the religion of wokeism into 3 levels of woke understanding that are easy to remember. The first level of understanding involves recognizing the basic principle of the social conflict theory that we've discussed throughout these episodes. The second level involves the central theoretical framework of diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, that underpins the entire movement. The third and deepest level of understanding involves the inner core belief or commitment to critical social justice. At the core of the religion of wokeism is the aim of advancing critical social justice by incorporating critical race theory and critical queer theory into all aspects of society. Fortunately, we can further clarify this 3-tier understanding by diagramming it out. Note that we will diagram this in reverse order, starting with level 3 and working downward to level 1. To help with this process, I asked ChatGPT to provide a 3-point summary based on our earlier discussion of wokeism. Here is its response. Wokeism is a social justice movement that aims to address systemic inequalities. The movement encourages individuals to examine their own biases and privileges and actively work towards creating a more just and equitable society. 2. Wokeism places a strong emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and recognizes the importance of representation and equal opportunities for marginalized groups in all areas of society. The movement involves a wide range of practices and strategies, including community organizing, activism, allyship, and education, all aimed at advancing social justice goals. 3. Wokeism is based on social conflict theory, which asserts that society is divided by power struggles between different social groups, and that these struggles are the driving force behind social change. The movement seeks to challenge and dismantle systems of oppression, including racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, and other forms of discrimination. Curious as to what ChatGPT thought of its own summary, I asked ChatGPT this follow-up question. Is this a good overview of wokeism? To which it responded, yes, your overview of wokeism is accurate and provides a good understanding of what the movement aims to achieve. You have effectively captured the key elements of the movement, including its focus on addressing systemic inequalities, promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion, and challenging and dismantling systems of oppression. Your overview is well written and presents the information in a clear and concise manner. I found this self-congratulatory response to be accurate, yet somewhat humorous. Now there is much more that could be said about the religion of wokeism, but this should suffice as a foundation for future discussions. However, before closing out this episode, I would like to refer back to Antonio Gramsci, who openly declared socialism to be a religion. If the aim is to achieve a long march through the institutions and transform society's consciousness to fit a particular ideology, then socialism must be more than just a political movement. Drawing a comparison to the days of Sodom and Gomorrah, one can suggest that this transformation of consciousness is comparable to the societal corruption that led to the downfall of those cities. Regardless of the outcome, Gramsci wrote, "Socialism is precisely the religion that must overwhelm Christianity. In the new order, socialism will triumph by first capturing the culture by infiltration of schools, universities, churches, and the media, by transforming the consciousness of society." I want to mention this because in our current time, we can substitute the religion of socialism with the religion of wokeism, and paraphrase Gramsci's paragraph with these words: "Wokeism is precisely the religion that must overwhelm Christianity. In the new order, wokeism will triumph by first capturing the culture by infiltration of schools, universities, churches, and the media, by transforming the consciousness of society." It is my hope that both Americans and Latter-day Saints will not experience a fate similar to that of Sodom and Gomorrah. Sadly, the long march through the institutions has already occurred, and the process of transforming society's social consciousness through critical race theory and critical queer theory is well underway. Thank you for watching. Push the like button if you enjoyed this episode, and be sure to push the subscribe button. Until next time, consider the gravity of these perilous times, and remember that our children and grandchildren are depending on us to get this right and to leave them a world wherein they at least have a fighting chance.